Shabbat Shalom and welcome back to TLV Talk. I am here with my brother, Joseph Greenberg.
Welcome back.
My dad is out today, and we are so excited to talk about this week's Torah portion with you. The reason me and Joe are here today is because this week's Torah portion is all about siblings.
Yes, it is about Jacob and Esau. It's a very famous Torah portion that just about everybody knows about, but we're going to get into it because there's some details there that I think we forget to remember about.
Well, this week's Torah portion is parsha Toledot, and that is from Genesis 25:19.
And it means generations.
All the way to Genesis 28:9. And so in these few chapters, we have a lot of time that passes from birth all the way to Jacob running away from home and running away with Esau's birthright as the firstborn. Now, in our family, I'm the firstborn. But because Joe got married first and had a baby first, a lot of people tend to think that he is the firstborn and that I'm the middle child. And that's kind of similar to the situation that Jacob and Esau get themselves into. And I didn't trick you into getting married first or having a baby first.
And I didn't ask for your birthright.
Exactly, because our inheritance is shared. We have the same inheritance in Messiah Yeshua, and that is the kingdom. And it's really interesting because it's not necessarily the trick that's played on Isaac that's the saddest part about all of this. It's the way that Esau loses his identity as the firstborn son. And so I'd like to talk today about, what it's like to not be able to figure out who you are in the family and in the dynamic, and what it takes for us to really figure out who we are as God is our Father. Because it's not just about our physical family, it's about our spiritual family. And regardless, as Mom likes to say, I'm his favorite, and you're his favorite, and everyone else is his favorite. And so let's talk about that. So how did you come to, understand your own identity, within our family and spiritually?
Well, I think that in a lot of ways, I think it's important to remember that when you have siblings, that, that you are just as important as the rest of them, and that God puts you in a family for a reason. And what's really interesting is, in this week's Torah portion with Jacob and Esau, that God already knew that Jacob was going to steal Esau's birthright, and that they were put in a family for a reason. And this kind of sibling dynamic, as well as really all of Genesis, is about family. So
absolutely.
Recognizing, in our Torah portions, what we need to learn really stems from this concept of family.
How to behave, how not to behave. How to relate to one another, how not to treat each other. It's kind of like, don't kill your brother, don't throw him down a pit.
This is the third instance of sibling relationships, right? The first one was Cain and Abel, which we clearly know didn't end well.
No, it did not.
And then we have Ishmael and Isaac, which also didn't really end that well either.
No.
Especially for Ishmael's mom. That was a pretty harsh situation. But here we have an instance where you have Esau and Jacob, and you kind of feel bad for both of them. So I think of, the situation where, we know that we're in a family for a reason, and it's important to have empathy for your siblings. I think that's really important, that it can't be always about what's in it for me, or it's all about me. And, favoritism is another concept that,
we have to stay away from.
And I can't even remember how many times God talks about favoritism. It's a concept in the Bible that we see pretty much all the time, not only in the Old Testament, but especially in the New Testament, when we talk about God our Father. So
in this week's Torah portion, there's a Haftorah portion, which is the portion from the writings. And it talks about, I think it's in Malachi 3,
Yes.
where it talks about how, Jacob was loved and Esau wasn't. And it's really heartbreaking because Jacob didn't feel very loved. And that's one of the things that's really strange about this whole thing is that Jacob felt like he had to run, and that he was, what does it say about the relationship between Jacob and Esau that it was that fraught that when he did, like you and I have had our fair share of insanity where we've both been really, really angry at each other and quite frankly probably wanted to strangle each other. Pretty sure I do.
I don't endorse that message.
I'm pretty sure we've had those moments though. And but the strength of our relationship is that we don't strangle each other, and we forgive each other, and we love each other, and we support each other in all that we do. And I'm pretty sure if Jacob had asked, Esau probably would have helped him out with the birthright.
Yeah, and actually what's cool is in a few Torah portions, we're going to see how this relationship pans out. Unfortunately, we see kind of in each Torah portion sort of a snapshot of where, people's lives are at. And, they're not always good, right? But, in this point, in a lot of ways, it makes you think, Jacob kind of, in a lot of ways, did a fulfilling prophecy. The fact is his name, right, when he came out, was usurper, or somebody who grabs at the heel. This idea that Jacob was going to take something that wasn't his, right? And so, that's the tough part is you think about Jacob being raised like that, always being reminded that he was
by his mother,
right.
And then his mother trying to make it happen herself.
Right. So it makes you wonder, how much of this is siblings and how much of it is parenthood, right? Favoritism. I just feel like in this Torah portion, I feel bad for both of them, right? And I think it's important as families that we have to keep that in mind.
And the other thing that's really interesting is that you just brought up what Jacob's name was, and what you name your children is important. For me, I know that the first blessing that I got from my parents was my name. They named me Beloved. And ever since, I have definitely felt that. And they named you Born of Good Stock.
Yes, to increase.
To increase those born of good stock. And he has already done the part of increasing those born of good stock. Yes. And little Miss Rose Golda is just a beautiful, beautiful rose in the garden of God's family. And quite frankly, we're all absolutely enamored with her. But you have to remember that names mean things, and they do have influence on who you are and what you are. I mean, our mom changed her name because she was tired of having the word yell in her name. She was Danielle, and now she's Danya. And she was tired of having that in her name.
Yeah, this idea that, what you name things, and we even see that with, Jacob naming the different wells, right? When he deals with all these different tribes that are trying to, take over the wells that he does. The fact is what you name things matter, what come out of your mouth matters, and that if you're not careful, you can basically create self-fulfilling prophecies in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So,
well, in a couple of, in another Torah portion, we're going to see what God names Jacob, not what his parents name him. And just remember that regardless of what you do, regardless of your relationships, regardless of all of that, you are a child of God, and he has a name that he calls you. He has a name for you that is better than silver and gold. And he
has a future and a hope. And in a lot of ways, God has an amazing ending for you, just like he has for Jacob, just like he has for Esau, that at every situation, it's amazing to walk the path of Israel and everybody who was involved in Scripture and see how God really came through for them in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So if they could do it, we can do it.
Yeah, and hopefully Jacob's children will learn from their father's lesson, but we'll see that in the next few weeks. So have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you here next week. Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.